Hi there, and welcome to episode 5 of the Gym Owner's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm John Ruggie.
And I'm Matt Sharp.
This podcast is a project of Sweat Angels, the #1 referral program for gym owners. Sweat Angels helps fitness businesses generate referrals on Facebook. How do we do it? Every time members check in at your gym, we make a donation to a great charity. To learn more, head to causely.com/sweatangels. That's causely.com/sweatangels, or just search for us on Facebook.
In today's episode, we'll speak with Paul Nobles, founder of Eat to Perform. Paul founded Eat to Perform just a few years ago as part of his mission to improve his own health. Along the way, he developed a Facebook following of over 1 million fans and has helped thousands of people improve their fitness and well-being. So without further delay, let's hear from Paul Nobles of Eat to Perform. All right, Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Eat to Perform?
Well, the original part of me starting with Eat to Perform was the time before Eat to Perform, where I was technically obese. And so I was 230 pounds, and I had kind of a background. We talked a little bit about, my poker playing days, and, I played high-stakes poker for a few years, and it occurred to me that if I could take money from really smart people, that maybe I'm a pretty smart guy, and there's no way that a smart guy should be walking around with this much fat on his body, right? And so what I started to do was do what I did with poker, and I started analyzing data, and I started tracking, various elements. And originally, like I was saying to Matt early on, what I did was I just worked out all the time, I do have to back up just like 1 second, though. I did spend like 10 years, kind of yo-yo dieting and really not figuring it out. And most of the approach that I was doing at that time was really without exercise as a component. So this last time, basically, I added exercise. And I knew, one of the secrets to being a good poker player is whatever everyone is doing, do the opposite. And so knowing that, that's how I started my fitness journey. Is I said, well, for 10 years I've been trying this, yo-yo dieting cycle. I'm going to try the opposite, even though it's opposite what every single person out there says. And so I started, doing a lot of cardio at first, and then just eating whatever I want, and then just refine my approach, from there.
Cool. So you made the transition into taking all this information from yourself and turning that into a business. Is that right?
Well, initially what I did was I started hiring, PhDs and really smart people and asking them their opinion, because a lot of what we talk about with Eat to Perform is not new information. It's very well known within the strength and conditioning community that you need carbs to perform, well in the gym, and you need to have an adequate amount of food for what you do. And so the thing that makes Eat to Perform different is no one says that to 48-year-old females. And I have to say, like, when we started Eat to Perform, I didn't really know who the audience was. By the time I had started Eating to Perform, I was already well involved. Had a lot of really smart guys that I was paying to help me. A lot of them now work for me, and so I was working with Elizabeth Akinwale originally, and Elizabeth was like, "Hey, why don't you tell people about this stuff?" I was like, honestly, I don't think that most people are going to want to hear it. And I was wrong.
Yeah. So that's cool. So you have, you've had this system that you developed, and you're starting to get this itch that like other people might want to hear about it. How did you start to get the word out? Because I think eventually, we're all going to be very interested in how you got to over 1 million fans on Facebook and how you've grown this enormous audience. So you have this idea, you have this system that has worked for you. So what's next? Like, how do you start getting the word out?
Yeah. So, like, when I was doing, like, most of the eating and cardio approach, I kind of got, we were talking about this before the podcast, I kind of got to this point where I was sort of stuck at about 22%. We actually see this with a lot of our customers.
22% body fat, right?
Yeah, 22% body fat. And we see that with a lot of customers that are coming from like a mostly paleo, non-specific background, where they kind of hit this wall and they don't really know how to break through that wall. And for myself, it really was adding some level of weight training. I didn't really. I've actually refined my approach. So some of the things I'm talking about now are different. I do things different now than I did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I went from 22% to 9% in 6 months by lifting weights, and at that point I was probably lifting weights too much and kind of ignored the cardio part. And so now, I have a more well-rounded approach to what I do. I don't actually CrossFit all that much. I power lift, I run. I think that like the basis for what most people should do is kind of a really varied approach rather than just changing out your sit-ups to pull-ups.
Yeah. So this has been really successful for you personally, of course. And what a lot of people may not understand is that this is a very substantial business for you. You've had your Facebook page 2.5 years. You have 1.2 million followers. And I think what a lot of our listeners would really like to hear about is how you built such a strong audience. Because anyone knows who's in business, if you don't have an audience to talk to, you're not selling anything. So talk to us about when you first started Eat to Perform as a business. Any new Facebook page starts with 0 followers.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to focus on Facebook? And how did you go from 0 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000?
My friends at my gym crack up laughing at the fact that I have 1.2 million followers on Facebook, because I had to beg them to get me 30 so you could promote your page, right? And so when I first started off, a lot of people were interested in the CrossFit community. And then once people started figuring out that I powerlifted, then the powerlifting people were really interested. And then once people started figuring out that I ran, then the running people were interested. But what people were really interested in with Eat to Perform was that we had a take, and that take was very different than everybody else out there. And what I see a lot, I'm seeing this a lot at the CrossFit Games, and you see a lot everywhere. When you think of Eat to Perform, it says exactly what it is, right? We could take somebody who does Weight Watchers, we could take somebody that does the zone, we could take a paleo, vegetarian, whatever, and we could make those systems work better for them. The opposite isn't true, right? You can't just randomly do vegetarian and then, there's some people that see results doing that type of stuff, but more often than not, they end up being underfed as a result. So probably the biggest moment for us that really made a big jump was when we added the Eat to Perform calculator. And when people started doing the calculations, they knew in their heart of hearts, and when I say people, I mean women, they knew they weren't eating that number.
This is a calculator you had on your website, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get people? So once you design this calculator, how do you get people to find out about it? How did you drive people to the calculator?
That's really hard to say. Like, I remember early on, there was myself and James and then April, and we were, for a long time, 3 people, and that was it. And we didn't have any monetization model or anything like that. We were just talking to people about what, we felt.
Were you guys using the Facebook page back then to talk to people?
Yeah. I was writing, basically what would happen is people would message me and email me, and that's an interesting story. People would message me, email me. They would write comments on the blog. And what I would do is I would just write articles, like 3-4 articles a day sometimes, and then I would have James editing them. James still works for me. He still does the content management and stuff like that.
So you're getting feedback from the audience. And instead of just answering them directly, you'd write an article so that everybody could answer.
Yeah, they kept asking the same questions over and over, so I felt like it would just be better off. And some of those articles are horrible.
Yeah.
But some of those articles, actually, we still use to this day.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it, if you go to Eat to Perform, they're like, well, wait a second, I can't comment on Eat to Perform blog now. I can't message you now. I don't know what your email is. That's on purpose.
Right.
Right? Because my dad said something, I was really frustrated at one point that we were getting inundated. I mean, we went from 500 people to 100,000 people probably in about, I'd say, a month and a half. Because most people, I think the whole idea of just eating chicken and kale and working out really doesn't appeal to a lot of people. But I think also, they're not getting results that they want. I mean, a lot of gyms don't realize they're in a very specific business, and they're in the fat loss business. When I talk to clients, I say to them, look, I'm going to get you results, but you're going to get results on my timeline. Right. It's your timeline that's screwing you up. It's the fact that you want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days that's screwing you up. And I was the first person that was really blunt about that, and that people were like, you know what? I don't think that they really liked what I was saying necessarily, but they were saying, what I'm doing isn't working. And this guy is logically making sense.
Do you think that, so some of those early articles that were a little controversial, do you think that those were getting shared a lot with friends?
Yeah.
Do you think that's how you went from the, got to the 100,000?
When we first started off, we got a lot of people that were talking about sugar addiction. That was like a big thing. You don't hear sugar addiction being talked about at near as much as it used to be. And one of the reasons why is we wrote article after article talking about sugar addiction is energy addiction. You're not eating enough, and therefore you're craving energy-dense sources. And there's so many people out there saying, avoid energy-dense sources, avoid energy-dense sources. And so when we started saying, no, when you work out, you need energy-dense sources, and that's why you're craving sugar. You're not craving sugar because you like sugar. You're craving sugar because you have an uninformed approach to the way that you eat. But I want to go back to the part about why we don't have message. Why you can't message me?
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad. I mean, it was really, really hard. It's very personal to me. I was 230 pounds. I got down to 150. I sit at 170 right now. People's health is really important to me. It's become incredibly important to me. And so I felt like if I was going to put out this information that I had to give people the science behind it. And so, but we didn't have a monetization model at that point. And so I was talking to my dad. I said, Dad, it's really, really hard, getting all this information to people and really kind of helping them. And I said, they got a lot of people interested in the Eat to Perform. I said, but I just don't know how to get them to make that jump. And he said, well, he said, it sounds like you got a lot of interested people, but you don't have a whole lot of committed people. I hung up the phone right there. I said, I'll be right back. And I wrote an article that kind of made me sound like a jerk, but we put a monetization model in place right there and then. If you wanted help with what you were doing, you kind of had to pay me. And the article I wrote was, are you interested or are you committed? And if you're committed, you'll pay me and we'll be able to have a discussion long term. And it wasn't really about the money for me. It was about them showing a commitment. I mean, at that point, I didn't view Eat to Perform as something I was going to, have 1.2 million followers and, be the biggest Reebok affiliate and all this other type of stuff. I never thought that, all I wanted to do was help people. And, when I went from talking to people about being interested to committed, basically I took all the messaging off. The only way that you were going to be able to talk to me And we only charge people like $4.95 a month at that point, you know. So yeah, that was a big moment for us.
And even if you're not charging a lot, just the fact that someone is paying,
Yeah,
it's a signal to them, like internally, that they're committed, right? Because now they're vested in it, they're spending money on it, and they want to see the results. It's a lot more motivating to get involved with something and really invest in the program and learn what it's about when you've made some commitment and you've made a financial investment yourself, right?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I talked about it a little bit. I mean, I'm looking dead across from a place that does paleo challenges, and there's all these other people that I think are kind of like Me Too businesses. And if you don't know what a Me Too business is, it's basically a business that, they see somebody else having success and they go, me too, and they just say, well, I'm going to take that idea and make it better. And frankly, that rarely happens. You're almost always better off being very individual. But I can tell you, when I first started off, I didn't envision the customers that I have right now. I didn't envision talking to, I would say probably 70% of our customer base. They're probably 48-year-old females. They're kind of in that range. They're not gym killers. They just want to go to the gym and they want to enjoy life. And I think that I think they want to see results. And we're able to show them results, but we also able to show them thousands of success stories based on those results. And that's been kind of a big thing for us.
So can you talk a little bit about how you keep people engaged who are part of the program? So if you haven't spent any time on Eat to Perform's page, you've got a lot of really, I don't want to say viral videos necessarily, but stuff that's interesting. It's a funny video of someone dropping a weight or kind of something inspirational. How do you source that content? How do you think about what to share to really get people kind of staying with you and sharing that content with their friends?
Well, when I first started off the Eat to Perform, this was actually another, it's kind of funny thinking back to all this stuff because, at the time I started Eat to Perform, everyone knew that the way to get people was to be controversial. And even though we were saying stuff that was different than the norm, what we made a requirement, if you were a fan of the page, you had to view it like it was my living room. And so if you were going to come in my living room, you basically needed to be an adult. You needed to, if you were going to debate what we were going to talk about, you had to understand that in the end, I have the microphone. And ultimately, I'm putting out the information. And, there's a lot of people that want to argue, on the internet. And we never used the page like that. We did not seek controversy. I mean, certainly we've had controversial moments. But in general, I believe that controversy, yeah, it might get you a lot of followers, but it doesn't get you...
It's not sustainable.
It doesn't get you a good discussion. And in the end, it's distracting. Yeah. And every now and again, I'll write a post and it'll be more controversial than I thought it would be. And that'll distract me from 3 or 4 hours of working with my customers, and that's not a good thing. So in general, we try to keep the dialogue pretty positive. And I think, at least 2.5 years ago, that was refreshing to people. There was so many pages out there that were just like arguing and not giving real good information. And we just really focused on the quality of information. I mean, when you look at who we hire, I get asked a lot, are you a nutritionist? I'm like, I'm not a nutritionist. I hire nutritionists. I hire PhDs. I hire the most informed people as it relates to exercise physiology. And that's ultimately what we do,
So one of the things you touched on that I want us to skip over is there's a lot of parallels what you're saying about being positive versus trying to tear everybody down as a business model with the gym industry. And a lot of owners, and I see pages that are failing all the time, that half of their content is trying to tell you why other stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to tell you that their stuff does work.
Exactly.
Kind of ignoring everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look, I mean, that is a great example. If you look at our articles, we have probably some of the biggest read articles on the concept of paleo or the zone. And we never said, paleo is bad or the zone is bad. We took the exact opposite approach. We said, here's how to do the zone right. Like at seminars, I always say, anybody ever bulked on the zone? And pretty much everyone says no. And part of the concept of Eat to Perform is that you eat an adequate amount of calories for what your body burns most of the time. And so, like, introducing that idea as it relates to the zone or Weight Watchers or, like Weight Watchers, you can't just, like, go to zero. You know what I mean? And so eventually you have to have a plan. And so the idea of kind of keeping your dialogue positive and really kind of ignoring everyone around you. But I think there's a bigger point because you talk about the page. The page is actually not the most popular part of Eat to Perform. We have a members group. We actually only started the members group 3 months ago, and we have like 6,000 members in that. And people constantly talk about the fact that they wish their regular feed on Facebook didn't exist because it's only positive people and positive things and people talking about PRs and every now and again people will post a dessert, and that's okay. I mean, that's really, Eat to Perform is about living life and enjoying the deal. And what I always say to people, at least to my staff, is I want people's attention for the rest of their life. I feel like we can have a very demonstrable point of proof that if you take a patient approach to health, right? I mean, if you're just like under eating all the time, that's not healthy either, And so there's a happy medium, and I get that people have fat loss goals. And obviously, we try to have an answer for that, and we have a really good answer for that. But, that level of positivity, and just that safe place, for customers, I don't know much about a lot of gyms, but if you can create a safe place where people like to hang out, that's a big part of the answer.
Well, let's talk more tactical about that. So if you were going to, say you were running a gym.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of parallels, right? There's going to be the public-facing page, and then one of the things that we do at our gym and where I'm seeing more and more gyms do is have that private group that's a safer place for the members because the regular news feed is kind of toxic, right?
Yeah.
So having a place, so if you were going to, let's say you were consulting a gym and they said, how should I set this up? How should I set my Facebook page up? What type of stuff should I post? Should I have a private group? What kind of advice would you give?
Well, I'm having a hard time listening to your question because your eyes are piercing my soul, Matt. But, what I think really, when you look at whatever it is you do, right, the good majority of people aren't doing that. And so when you're successful at anything, and obviously, you look at, these CrossFit Games athletes, and we're talking about CrossFit a little bit here because we're at the CrossFit Games. But when you look at the highest, most successful people in CrossFit, they hang around the other highest, most successful people in CrossFit. They go to their gyms. They live with them for like a month. If you're unfit, right, you're going to want to hang around people that are fit. And in general, if you're a gym owner and you can create that atmosphere where everybody is supportive, and I'm not talking about CrossFit, I'm talking about if you're Orange Theory, Lifetime Fitness, whatever, if you're not having barbecues, if you're not having social gatherings, you're missing the point. People want to connect with other people. And, I see this a lot where gym owners get to a point where they become almost distanced from their relationship with their customer, you're about to go out of business. I'm just telling you that. The closer you have, when people were asking me why, I don't have a booth at the CrossFit Games. And the person that asked me that, I said, because I can't talk to you. I said, I'm here to talk to you, and one of my biggest goals with Eat to Perform, forget the money, right? If the money happens, awesome, okay? But in the end, all true ideas, all great concepts come from a place of passion. And I love my customers. I want to see them succeed. And you know what? I have to be real honest with you. Like, I'd much rather spend time in my private Facebook group than on my personal page or even on like the regular Facebook page. These people are my friends. I care about them, I mean, there's people that I wake up and I think of, I wonder how Lillian Jackson's doing today. I wonder how Rochelle Rice is doing today. If you're a gym owner and you don't think those types of thoughts, you're about to go out of business.
And one of the things I think you do really well, you haven't used the term, but a lot of what you've been talking about is authenticity. Right, you're true to yourself. You're true to the values that you espouse, and you don't worry so much about what some other brand or some other company is doing. You just have a strong set of beliefs about how you want to communicate, what you want to say, and that's what you focus on. And part of that is listening to your customers, like you said, through this private group. Can you talk a little bit about some of the feedback your customers have shared through that group and how it's affected your business?
Well, I mean, daily. We have theme days in the private group, and Tuesday is Trap Tuesday, and Wednesday, is Hump Day, Rump Day.
It's probably one of the most favorite days.
That's the most favorite day right now. We've had to actually
tone it
down a little bit, but we have Flex Friday, and it would shock you the amount of people. And the people that post, you would think that it would be all the super fit people that have seen great results, and it's not. People want to feel a part of something, and
well, they feel safe on that page.
They do feel
something that they would never do.
Yeah, but that's partly me. Like, I make sure that when somebody posts something inappropriate, not only do I delete it, but I say this is why we are deleting this, because this is a safe place for everyone. What we get a lot of times is that we'll have people with more fat to use. We don't say more fat to lose. We say more fat to use, because what we want the emphasis to be that you're using your stored body fat for good, and I think that that's kind of something that makes a difference. But we do have some people every now and again that will post something about photoshopped images or skinny. And we have those people in the group too. So when you start to chastise, people that are already really lean or something like that, or maybe even like super fit, that's also kind of mean. I mean, like, so we try to be supportive of everyone, and we try to make sure that everyone understands that message. And when somebody makes a post, they don't always think about it. And I'm guilty of that too. I don't always know what's going to be controversial. They will apologize to me and they'll say, look, I love what you do and I appreciate the atmosphere that you've created, and I would have never done anything. And that always touches me too, But yeah, I mean, it does take work, and it takes, care. I mean, we have 35 coaches for Eat to Perform. We'll have 50, by October, and we should have 100 by January 1st. So, Eat to Perform has grown into a very serious business. But when you think about what we are, it's people. That's the difference. The calorie stuff, the points, and all the other things that everybody does, none of those things matter if it's not for people. And, what people, the one thing I say to my staff all the time is Oprah, Disneyland, and Cheers. I said, Oprah, be relatable, right? If you're feeling a little fluffy around the middle because you've been at the CrossFit Games and haven't been able to work out for 4 days, and you're feeling like, wow, this kind of sucks, take a picture of it and share it with your customers, because you know what? They feel like that, and it makes you relatable, and it makes them understand that this is a long-term process. The Disney
Being authentic.
Yeah. And then the Disneyland, think of what you would want as a customer. And sometimes like we have a promotion coming up where we will be giving away $100,000 in the course of 2 months. And that came from the fact, basically $50,000 of that is going to be customers that are going to be meeting us in Miami. And that came from the idea of a customer saying to me, you know what would be awesome is if we could all work out together and hang out together for a weekend. And so I did it, right? And you know what? It might cost me some money. I might lose money on that deal. But you know what? I'm not going to stop dreaming.
Yeah.
And that's the Disneyland. And then Cheers, is just basically simple. Just try and know everybody's name, and just care about their struggle.
So if you think about like the 10,000 foot view for an owner, so like if you're going to help somebody out, it'd be create that Facebook page, produce content that is very relatable, very positive, and then once you kind of have people interested, you get them committed, and then you can have a tighter group, a private group for your members to really foster those longer term relationships, give them a safe place. And, it's tough. It's tough for them to quit at that point. Like, highly engaged people rarely quit.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot. In the private group, people will say, well, I'm trying to convince my friend Barb at the gym. I was like, first rule of ETP Club, don't talk about ETP Club, right? And the idea isn't that we wouldn't want referrals or something like that. But in general, if you're trying to convince a friend, and they're not, seeing that you're making this major life change. I mean, a lot of times when people go to join a gym, they become really invested in that. And they would like their friends to join them or people that are around them to share that, and kind of a shared experience. And so if you can create that exclusive type thing, that's a bit of the secret, right? And so like this whole idea of we're over here fighting this fight together, and people will show up, especially if you can get people results. But in general, if you can create like an exclusive atmosphere, you have, like in my case, because we have such great scale, we can do like the Miami trip. But I mean, our barbecue is as good or if not better. I mean, one thing that people have to realize is I don't know most of these people in real life. So I have to go to great lengths. You know them in real life. I mean, buying them, a coffee or, talking to them for 15 minutes about whatever it is that's kind of bothering them. I mean, most gym experiences, nutrition experiences, it's so very little about calories. It's always about the hurdles. It's about,
It's the mental struggles.
Yeah. It's just that other stuff. That
everybody's selling the quick fix.
Yeah.
That's why there's a lot of bouncing around.
Okay, you're bringing up a great point. If the Eat to Perform, we're not the quick fix. Right? If everybody else is selling, they're a Me Too business at that point. So what you do is you go, I'm not going to sell the quick fix. And so if I was making a sign for my gym, it's going to take a while for you to see success. Or, maybe not. Maybe that wouldn't be the best one. But like, we teach you a lifetime of results.
Yeah.
And
I tell people when they come to our gym, try everything else and then come see us.
Yeah.
Or we get the people that have tried everything else and then they're ready.
Absolutely.
They're actually ready to do it at this point. So.
And as long as your coaches understand, I always say, what's funny is there's people that know me here, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the Eat to Perform guy. You've changed my life," and it's like that's really super humbling. In general, I'm kind of incognito, and why? Well, do you know who the CEO of Weight Watchers is? I mean, do you know who the, CEO of Reebok is? I think that I carry the banner for some people, but I think Kim Christensen, who's one of my coaches, carries the banner for a lot of people. And a lot of my coaches, they carry banners for individual people. So if I put the emphasis on me and Paul Nobles and really kind of put myself out there, I mean, obviously somebody like Jillian Michaels, that works for her. But she's looking for a personal brand. I'm not looking for a personal brand. I'm looking to beat Weight Watchers.
Yeah. And there's a nugget there because and you've probably seen gyms as well, that the gym is all about the owner.
Yeah. And
you see how those gyms do long term.
Well,
versus,
you see that a lot with the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
Right? It's about, these 6 people, are going to the CrossFit Games, or that gym owner's going to the CrossFit Games. And that probably works for a while because, people look at that person and, with their shirt off, they look great. But I guarantee you that hurts people as much as it helps people in a lot of instances, because a lot of people can't see that they could get there. And realistically, they might not have the genetics to do that, or they might not have, what people don't realize is that a lot of these folks work out 6 hours a day, right? If you're a lawyer, you can't do that. If you're a doctor, you can't do that,
Yeah.
So your approach needs to be a little different. But if you can figure out a way, like if that CrossFit Games athlete can make that person feel special, if you look at Rich Froning's secret, I guarantee you he knows every member's name at CrossFit Mayhem. He's just that dude, right?
Yeah.
He cares about those people. When Rich Froning shows up here at the CrossFit Games, there is a busload of people that show up. There's like 2 busloads because he cares about them and they care about him.
Julie
as a
was
result.
the same way when she spoke the other day. It was just out the door.
Yeah. Well, Julie's a different animal. I think that, one of the things that I realized, because, when I was doing poker, we had some business stuff with poker as well. And that was really more my focus. And I was telling poker players, you should really have something other than poker. And, the one thing I figured out is poker players want to play poker, and CrossFitters want to CrossFit. And so Julie's kind of unique. And, she obviously, she's studying to become a doctor. So she cares about people's health. I'm not saying that other people don't care about other people's health, but she wears it on her sleeve.
Yeah.
She will sit down. She'll
be an amazing doctor someday.
Yeah. Julie, when we visited Julie in Ann Arbor in February, she sat down and talked with my daughter for probably a half hour. She views it as her responsibility to be like a shining example for these 13-year-old girls. You don't think that made a huge impression on my kid, you're wrong,
Yeah.
And so, it is about authenticity. It's about caring. And when you look at me, I'm not the fittest guy, but when you look at Eat to Perform's, stories, there's no one that has a better Eat to Perform story than Paul Nobles.
Right.
I was 230 pounds. I'm 170 pounds. I have a 500-pound deadlift. I never lifted a weight in my life. That's a complete change. And I think that's a big part of what we do, is that we get people to go, why have I been chasing this elusive fat loss thing forever? And I'm going to tell you something. I know we were talking about business, but, I've been to 9%. And you know what? There's no unicorns and rainbows there. I'm sitting at 13% and feeling a lot better, more healthy. I can eat more flexibly. And so, you figure that type of stuff out as you go. And I think that the more gym owners can cater their message to, if you cater your message to getting everyone 7%, we don't go after bodybuilders as an example. And we've had bodybuilders reach out to me, and I'm like, I just don't do that. And then why? I was like, because it's not Eat to Perform. Eat to Perform is about people eating food, and we're not about chronic dieting. We're not about extremes. We're about a progressive approach, and if you do a progressive approach as a gym owner, you'll stand out.
That's great, Paul. Yeah. So I do want to ask one question that's more related to kind of the tactics of what you do. Kind of touch on some things we talked about earlier in the podcast. You mentioned before we started recording today that you do spend a little bit of your budget on getting more likes, on boosting your posts. And can you share some of your advice for owners out there who have maybe thought about doing that or have done it and wasted some money? Because it's very easy to do. There's that big boost button on your page that it's just a couple clicks away from spending money. But can you talk a little bit about when the right time to do that is, and how to do that the right way so you're not just throwing money down the drain?
If you're a gym owner in Lubbock, Texas, I don't see why you wouldn't want to own every single person in Lubbock, Texas, right? And you ask me, well, how would I engage people in Lubbock, Texas? Well, that's easy, right? Find things that people in Lubbock, Texas care about. And so if there's a local high school kid and he scores 5 touchdowns, or there's a local gymnast and she's going to the Olympics, cover that on your page. That's important to people. They'll engage with that. And so don't think of it from the standpoint, what I see, I see this all the time, is people want to do before and afters. And that's awesome. It shows that what you do is successful. But people get tired of that before and afters. What they want is recipes. They want actionable items. When you look at the majority of the way that people like Eat to Perform, it's because we don't necessarily just by likes, we actually boost the articles that we get a lot of engagement from. And so, like, if it's an article, we had an article recently where a lot of people wear Fitbits, as activity trackers, and we boosted an article. I mean, the one thing that we have is we have a worldwide audience, but if you're in Lubbock, Texas, you can target your audience just to the people in Lubbock, Texas, and Facebook makes that really, really easy. And so if, there's a new grocery store opening up and, they have, 25% off of grass-fed meat, making an article about, 5 things that I eat right now as a gym owner that helps me stay lean for life, right? And then you boost that in Lubbock, Texas, and even if you aren't going, see, the problem is that people want to get a direct ROI for every dollar they spend. I don't do that. I don't know how many sales I've made today. I don't know how many people that have clicked my articles. It's always an average. And in general, what we see is, as an example, we get somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 emails, which is hilarious because everyone thinks that email marketing doesn't work. I'm proof it does work.
Yeah.
Pop-ups, yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah, that works too. All the stuff that people say, doesn't work. It doesn't work if you're not giving people a good value proposition. If you're giving people a good value proposition, if you're one of the fittest people in Lubbock, Texas, and you say, this is what I eat, people are going to listen to that. This is what I eat to stay healthy. Don't focus on abs, because if you focus on abs and you focus on like an ideal physique, then people are going to go, I did your program, John, in Lubbock, Texas, and after 6 weeks, I did not look like you, John, in Lubbock, Texas, and so I'm out of here. So you want to set the bar a little bit lower, so in the end, you have set an expectation that, hey, look, fitness takes time, and seeing progress takes time, but there is an important part. And every single one of you guys out there listening to this right now, write this article right now. You could change your life in 1 second. And then talk to them. Here's 5 things that you can do. You can go walk your dog right now instead of watching television. You can have a salad instead of French fries. You can drink more water. Right? Give people actionable items that they can do right now because, I remember my Uncle Ellis passed away And at that point, I was really early in my fitness journey. I was probably 3 weeks in, and he died of heart disease. And I asked my cousins, I said, hey, because they were talking about they were also going to want to get fit. I said, well, why don't we meet, at 3 p.m. tomorrow, They're like, no, I'm going to start on Monday. I said, well, I don't know that heart disease isn't going to get me, so I'm going to start today,
Yeah.
And so if you can focus people on actionable items, and, my cousins, as an example, are still struggling. It stuck for me, and it stuck for me in part because, I had a little bit better approach.
Hey, Paul, well, we're almost out of time, but I really want to thank you for being with us today. If people want to learn about Eat to Perform, where do they need to go?
Just, eattoperform.com. We do have a communities drive that we're going to be doing here. Actually, one of the earliest gyms that we work with was, what's Josh Brinkley's gym? It's Fire Alarm Athletics, I believe. He was one of the earliest supporters of Eat to Perform. He went around Oklahoma. If you want to know how Paul Nobles does business, he had my back when nobody else had my back. When we were talking about stuff, he said, this stuff seems logical. My gym members would benefit from this. I just sent Josh a $7,000 body fat analysis because he only has 50, 60 members. He can't afford that kind of stuff in a small town in Oklahoma. But, we're going to be doing a little bit more of that as a communities initiative. That'll be part of our 100,000, that we give away, because we want gyms to understand that we have an answer for their clients that's flexible enough for their vegetarians, for their paleoers, for their zoners, for their Weight Watchers. And, we have a really supportive group that only is going to add to whatever it is that they're doing. But more than anything, and they would be able to tap into a network. They actually are able to affiliate with us using ClickBank. So they can go to clickbank.com and then get a link for Eat to Perform, and then they get, I believe it's 40% for promoting us. And then their clients get to be part of the, $100,000 giveaways and stuff like that.
Man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks so much, Paul.
It's awesome talking to you guys.
All right, take care.
Alrighty.
Thanks for listening today. The Gym Owner's Guide to the Galaxy was produced by Matt Sharp, Jeremy Russell, and me, John Lucian. We're publishing new episodes every 2 weeks, so make sure you don't miss a single one. Just search for Sweat Angels or The Gym Owner's Guide to the Galaxy on iTunes or SoundCloud.
We are a production of Sweat Angels, the #1 referral program for gym owners. Sweat Angels helps drive new members at your gym by combining Facebook check-ins with giving back. If you haven't heard of us, just go to causeley.com/Sweat Angels or search for us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Gym Owner's Guide to the Galaxy.